Today we're going to be taking a first look at another offering from Wheeltop, the EDS OX 2.0. Before I start this video off, I want to be fully transparent. Wheeltop sent this to me to review with no expectation of a positive or negative. I don't know why they'd want a negative, but there was no obligation there. They just said, you can keep it, post a review. Here's a few specs we want you to mention, but you don't need to be positive or negative, so just want to get that out of the way. Now, if you don't know who Wheeltop is, that's okay. They've mostly been selling directly to like bike manufacturers and brands, not so much on the consumer side. But in the last little bit, they've started to sell some components direct to the consumer, including some wireless drivetrains. So I've used the previous version of this, the OX 1.0 if you want to call it that, or the OXYQ is I think what they officially called it, as well as their GEX drivetrain, which looks a lot like this, except it's drop bar specific. Comes in a nice box just like this, and when you open it up, ignore the fact that it's empty right now, pretend with me. Normally it's going to have your charging cable right here, the shifter or controller, whatever you want to call it, right here, and then your derailleur right here. So that's everything you get with it. On top you have a little thing right here, including some QR codes where you can learn more about the specifications of the system, as well as download the app. So this is going to include your manual right here. There's no paper manual included, but it's all online. You can get it through this link right here. So Wheeltop's OX 2.0 is their mountain bike specific drivetrain. As I mentioned, the GEX is for gravel. This is for flat bars, mountain bikes, that type of thing. Right now, this setup comes in at $399, which might sound like a lot, but if you are looking at wireless drivetrains, it's actually pretty good bang for your buck. The SRAM GX upgrade kit, which comes with comparable components, it's got your derailleur and your shifter, as well as battery. That is around $550. I don't know that this will stick around at $399. It shows on their website it's normally $550, which is right up there with the SRAM kit. So you might think, why would I pick this over the SRAM? So the main reason that I would pick this over SRAM is I don't necessarily love 12-speed drivetrains. I've always struggled with them when it comes to keeping them shifting precisely, keeping them working well, and I'm saying I am maintaining them as I should, whatever, doing everything I should there. It's just that they tend to be a little more finicky, especially if you're riding in, I don't know, muddier conditions. So for me, I think spring riding, when it's gonna be raining, and if I'm riding in some sandier areas, it just gets a lot of grit and grime in there. I don't love 12-speed for that. So this I am able to use right here with the Dior 11-speed 11 to 51 tooth cassette, and it works great. And if you, for some reason, wanted to run a 1x3, go for it. You can do it with this. And right now, you could also run it with a 13-speed drivetrain, which I think there's a few that's a little wobbly. I think there's a few cassettes out there, 13-speed, and then 14-speed, so it's future-proof. One other thing that may be an upside, may be a downside, but this battery is not removable. I know that sounds like a big issue. However, the battery life is really, really good. They advertise 20,000 shifts, and I guess somehow in their math, that's 3 to 4 months. But I think it's gonna be highly dependent on where you're riding, what you're riding, what type of rider are you? Do you constantly have to be in the right gear, or are you okay kind of grinding it out for a second or spinning through some things? My experience though with this has been really good on the battery life. I have not had to charge it yet. I haven't had it that long, but also the GEX, which I have on another bike, which has the same size battery, very, very, very similar on the derailleur, maybe the same. That one I've only had to plug in once in the 4 months that I've had it. So yeah, it's really good battery life. The reason that might be an upside is if you are someone who doesn't want to have to be constantly changing out these batteries and carrying spares with you and all that type of thing. So I like it. I prefer that I only have to charge it every couple of months instead of worrying about Yeah, sure, I can carry a spare, but then I have to carry a spare, and is my spare charged? That type of thing. So what are the differences from the first version, from the OX 1.0? One of the main ones is that one is only compatible with 7 to 12 speeds. So this one, again, like I mentioned, you have a wider range there, although I think 7 to 12 is totally acceptable. That's what most people are going to be running anyway. One other thing is that the Bluetooth connection between the derailleur and the shifter back here has been optimized. I hadn't experienced any issues with connectivity, but apparently some people had, so they've upped that game so that it's a more stable connection. But again, I have the first version and I never had issues with it, but good to know they're at least considering that. On the aesthetic side, this one is definitely a little more modern looking, maybe a little more attractive looking. They call it their shark fin design, so it's a little more aerodynamic. The 1.0 is a little blocky and compact. It's not necessarily a bad thing. This one though does look a lot cleaner, a little bit better, and so if you're really into the aesthetics or really after any aerodynamic gain you can get, you're probably going to prefer this one. The last advantage of this over the 1.0 is something I hadn't really considered before, but I did get a cycling computer 4 months ago, and I've been using that, and this can connect to it. So you can see what gear you're in, and on my Wahoo, that means I can view it as either the number, or I can view it as like a visual of the cassette with, you know, these rectangles being bigger for the biggest gear, and then it turns black depending on which one you're in. So kind of cool, not necessarily useful for everyone, and you might say, hey, we've got those on mechanical shifters, but it's usually on cheaper bikes. Connected to that, you can also see the battery life, which is a pretty big advantage. However, mine's been a little buggy. So when I went out for the ride, my battery had plenty of battery life. It was around 80%, but my Wahoo would warn me that the battery life was low, and it would say it was like 10%. And then a couple minutes later, that would go away, and it would show the correct battery percentage. And then again, 20 minutes later, it would give me a warning that the battery was low. I would pull it up on the app on my phone and see that the battery life was fine, and then the warning would go away. So I don't know what's going on there. It was kind of annoying, but if they can get that fixed, that would be actually really helpful to have that. Okay, on the install, this is the one spot where I actually prefer the 1.0 over the 2.0, and again, where I think this is very similar to the GEX. I have not had a great experience with the initial setup. There's things in the app, which I discussed in the GEX one, where there's some translation issues, or just, it's very clear that it's someone who is not having English as their first language, writing the terms. So it doesn't make perfect sense, but I can look past that. I get it, and I know where to go. So the app is fine, and I actually kind of like the way it works. You've got your initial calibration to put the derailleur in the right spot for the first gear, and then every other value is based off of that, and that works great. However, this time around, I could not get this to be in the right spot for the initial calibration. It could not come out far enough, or basically the derailleur couldn't collapse enough and move that cog out to, or the cage out to align with the first cog. And it was an absolute nightmare. What I ended up having to do is I reached out to them, and their solution was to throw a washer in between the derailleur and the derailleur hanger. I do not love that solution. It worked, but that's not a great thing. This is where I'm a little bit conflicted though, because aside from the initial calibration, or like the initial setup, which has been a little bit of a headache, after that, it works so well. The clutch, it's as I would expect, and it's adjustable. The shifting is, once you put it there, that's where it's going. It's reliable. I haven't dropped any chains. Yeah, I have no issues once it's set up. It's just the initial setup that really causes me problems. And I know that's for sure gonna be a deal breaker for people. But the problem is, after that, it's really good. I really like it, especially for the price. And the nice thing is, if you do have problems while you're out there, you just pull your phone out, connect to it, and adjust the value, and then you're good to go again. So, I don't know. I hate that I had the same experience I had with the GEX. I really thought that one was mostly on my part. Part of me wonders if this experience is related to this cassette, the 11 speed, 11 to 51 tooth, because it's not all that common. And so I wonder if there's something in the combination of the spacing and the jumps that just throws it off. Because I've had actually decent setup experience with some of the other ones. So with a 10 speed up to like a 46 tooth, that one did fine. So I don't know, but I need to maybe play with it more. It's just a bummer that it's even a problem to begin with. The only other thing I think people might struggle with is the shifter. It's pretty big and bulky. It is not rechargeable. It uses one of those flat batteries. I can't remember which kind it is exactly, but it is a really common one. Like I've seen it at the store because it was fresh on my mind, and then I went to go grab something else. But they have it just at like a little grocery store in town. So it is a common battery size, which is nice. But it is bulky, as you can see. The shifters, like the buttons, click really well. Don't have any problems with that, but it's just kind of the bulkiness factor. But anyway, that is my review of Wheeltop's EDS OX 2.0, this new version. I think it's a great option for those who want to get into the wireless game and don't necessarily want to drop 500 bucks. So right now you're able to get it for a little less than that, for 400, and I think it's great there. It's also been really great for me as someone who swaps a lot between bikes, and they're not all the same speed. I have one derailleur, and I'm able to use it across multiple cassettes because it doesn't care. I can reprogram it to whatever speed that I want. Overall, I think it's a great product. I hope they get some of these little bugs and issues ironed out, especially with the setup. But if you want to know more about it, I've put a link down in the description. Go check them out. If you enjoyed this and you want to see more, especially my upcoming review on this bike right here, the Binary Havoc, be sure to subscribe and let me know what you think of this down in the comments. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.